Hi boys and girls, welcome to reading. Today we're going to read a fun story, and this story, actually our lesson today is starting on page 152 of our reading book, and then we're going to read our story called The Best Story, and then we're going to talk about a couple aspects of the story afterwards. Well, we're going to start by looking at some vocabulary, and we're going to start at page 152, and the first word is castle. Do you know what that word means? Castle. That is a really nice house, or you could call it a building where the king or queen would live. Beautiful, very decorative type of house, a big one, and that's a castle. The next word we'll look at is pretend. What does it mean to pretend? We know what pretend means. It means to act or play using your imagination. So you could pretend that you were flying a spaceship. You could pretend that you were going on an adventure. And then if you use dolls, girls at home, or boys, if you build a little fort with pillows, you could pretend in your house that you made a castle, or pretend that you're playing with your dolls, girls. And then the next word is explore. Explore, do you know what that word means? Explorer is someone that explores. Someone that goes out and goes up on a mountain to check out the mountain, or in another part of the world to check out an area that has not been explored, to take a look at something kind of far out. And then adventure, what does that word mean, adventure? An adventure is like a journey, a fun trip. You know, you could have an adventure here in town. You could say, I'm going to go with my mom or dad to Walmart, and we're going to have an adventure. We're going to see if you can find some things quicker. Me and my dad versus my mom and my sister. That could be adventure. Or on a trip, having an adventure to go to a different state, maybe to see family. Those are adventures. And so now we're going to take a look at our story, and then we're going to make a prediction. Now a prediction, I'm going to write that word right here. Prediction. A prediction is when we try to guess, when we try to think what the way something is going to happen or how a story will be. A weather person makes a prediction about the weather. They say, tomorrow I predict that it's going to be sunny, and usually they're right. And so many times we look at a story, when we look at the we look at the front cover of it, or we look at the first page, and we try to make a prediction about the story. Or sometimes we might try to make a prediction about the next part of the story. So we're going to make a prediction about this story. So the question is, what do you think you will read about in this story? And now let's take a look at kind of the front cover of it. It's called The Best Story. What would your prediction be about this story? I would think that this would be, I see some kids here on the front. Looks like they're in a library. I'm getting some clues about, with some details about this illustration, about this picture here. It says fairy tales, adventure stories, animal stories. They're holding up, this girl's holding up one book. So maybe they found a book. My prediction would be they found a book that is the best story. What do you think? Is that a good prediction, or do you predict something else? All right, boys and girls, let's go ahead and read. All right, here we go. We're going to start with page 154, and let's go ahead and read. It says, I like adventure stories the best, said Kate. Now, here I'm going to open this up, and when we open up a book like this, it's called a spread. The spread is both sides of the book. It's kind of both pages there. And so Kate here is saying that she likes adventure stories best. She's holding a book that says Jungle Adventures. And then the next page says, I pretend to be a brave explorer, she said. Now, do you see a couple of the vocabulary words? Maybe a few of them, actually. If you see them, let's go ahead and underline them. What's the first one we talked about? Adventure. I'm going to underline that. Adventure. Remember, an adventure is going on a journey, going somewhere, and it's really interesting, kind of having a lot of fun. And she says, I like adventure stories. So the type of story is adventure, and it says Jungle Adventures. And then we see the thought bubble here, and here she is having the adventure. Well, in her mind she is, because we see the second vocabulary word. She says, I pretend to be a brave explorer. Pretend is another vocabulary word. We know that pretend is to use your imagination. And what's interesting is a lot of times when you read a book, or if you're doing a picture walk in a book, it can help you to pretend. It can kind of paint pictures for you in your mind. and it can help you to pretend whatever you're pretending, whatever your imagination is coming up with. So, I pretend to be a brave explorer. Remember that vocabulary word? Explorer. I'm going to underline that. Now, an explorer, as we talked about, is someone that explores, and she would be exploring with her binoculars, backpack, her kind of jungle outfit. She's taking a look at the jungle. She's taking a look, and she's having a jungle adventure. All right, let's keep reading. On to page 156. Just turn the page. And it says here, I like animal stories the best, said Manny. So he's got a different book. This says kitten. Okay, in his thought bubble, I see him here playing with some kittens. I pretend they are my pets, he said. Once again, we have a vocabulary word, and you see it? It's pretend. So he likes these books, animal stories, and it helps him to pretend that he has some cats as pets. Now, let's keep reading. Now, the next girl, she has a different idea of what her favorite type of book is. I like fairy tales the best, said Sarah. I pretend to live in a giant castle, she said. She likes a totally different genre or type of book, fairy tales. Do you like fairy tales? Now, when she reads them, it helps her to, once again, there's the word, underline it, pretend. To pretend to live in a giant castle. Oh, there's a second word, vocabulary word on this page, castle. Now, we talked about a castle. It's a beautiful, big, interesting home that royalty would live in, king, queens, princesses, princes, people like that. And it helps her to pretend. So when we read a book, it's many times it can help us to imagine things and pretend things. Next page. Read this story, said Mrs. Ford. Now this story, it says, oh no, and it has a frog. Wow. What kind of story would this be? Let's make a prediction. What do you think that story would be? With a frog that looks like he just can't believe it. He's really surprised. And then the title says, oh no. Oh no. What do you think that would be? Interesting adventure? A funny book? Maybe a funny book. It looks kind of silly. Let's keep reading. The children said, this funny story is the best. The children read. This funny story is the best, they said. It makes us all laugh. Well, it looks like it's a funny story based on the text. So I was right, and probably you were right too. It's a silly, funny story. Now, I can see that right here. They've found a new type of book, a new genre. Looks like they all really like it. Not just one of them, but all of them do. Now, boys and girls, we're going to go ahead and write a couple vocabulary words here. Now, before we do that, I almost forgot. Was the prediction that we made about this story, was it correct? Remember, it was called The Best Story. And at the very beginning, I'm going to go ahead and flip back open to that. At the very beginning, they're holding one book up, and they said, this is the best story. I think that prediction was pretty good, because they each talked about a different type of book that they each liked, but in the end, they all liked a certain type of book that they discovered, right? Here's the one. So maybe, I think that prediction was pretty good, that they found the very best story. All right, so let's go ahead and write a couple of vocabulary words. Let's decide what are the best words to write here. It says to write. Now we're going to choose from these four words: castle, pretend, explorer, and adventure. Okay? It says Kate likes blank stories because she can blank to explore. Okay, now if we need to, we can go back into the story, go back into the text, and be reminded of what that detail from the story was to go ahead and fill this out correctly. So let's go back to the page that had Kate, and remember that? She was reading an explorer type of book, adventure type of book. There she is. I like adventure stories the best, said Kate. I pretend to be a brave explorer, she said. Okay, so she likes adventure stories. and it helps her to pretend to be a brave explorer. So, I'm looking for the first part of that, adventure. There's adventure. She liked adventure stories. So let's go ahead and put that in there, adventure. Now remember to use the top, bottom, and midline correctly with the word. So I'm going to write adventure. That's lowercase a, d, v, e, n, t, u, r, e. Now you can pause the video if you need to catch up, but we're writing, these are lowercase letters, so most of them, at least part of the letter or the entire letter is going up to the midline. Now the D and the T go all the way up to the top line, the longer part of it, but we're writing right in those lines. Very good. So we use adventure, okay? And Kate likes adventure stories because she can what to explore? Castle to explore? Does that make sense? No. Pretend to explore? Yeah, I think so, but let's check all the answers, possible answers. Explorer to explore? No, that doesn't make sense. And if I go check the text again, she says, I pretend to be a brave explorer. That should be it. She can pretend to explore. Once again, using the lines correctly. P-R-E, and we can check the spelling. P-R-E-T, lowercase, lowercase e, lowercase d, lowercase n and d. All right, so there it is. Let's read the sentence just to make sure it makes sense. Kate likes adventure stories because she can pretend to explore. Very good. Good job, boys and girls. All right, thank you for reading with me and filling out the vocabulary words. And thank you for joining me today for reading.